Advertising mascots are a staple of many product lines and restaurants. They become icons, instantly recognizable to customers, and help push product sales. They're an integral component of branding for many companies. But, every so often, they're due for a refresh, a new look, makeover, or style, to better appeal to customers, or even just keeping up with modern times. This happens quite often, and, over time, the current incarnation of an advertising icon may hold little resemblance to the original design. In May of 2012, CEC Entertainment Inc. decided their mascot, Chuck E. Cheese, was due for a refresh. It was far from the first time he'd been given a makeover, so the newly updated Chuck E. Cheese shouldn't have caused too much controversy, right? This past fall, the online Chuck E. Cheese fan community turned 25. Because of this, over the next year, our topics are going to highlight the fan community more than we have in the past. Today's episode especially took place when the fan community was very active, compared to some of our topics which took place 30 to 40 years ago. I don't really remember this happening too much because I was a kid, and I wasn't a fan at the time, but I still remember the debut of Rockstar Chuck, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So we get to see this topic from the perspective of a fan, not necessarily a regular consumer. Now, let's get into things. In June of 2012, a group of fans gathered in San Jose, California, the birthplace of Chuck E. Cheese, to celebrate the rat's 35th birthday as part of the 9th annual Cheesevention. There was a lot of conversation among the attendees as to what they might expect with the upcoming character change that was announced the previous month. At this point, it was all purely conjecture, as nothing official had been released by CEC Entertainment, save for an announcement in the press, and the only rumor fans had heard was that they were altering him to appeal to a slightly older audience than before. As mentioned, Chuck E. Cheese had been changed multiple times in the past, usually something minor, such as slapping a baseball cap on him, or something equally mundane that would appeal only to the most devout fans. But, of course, the imminent change had the attendees of Cheesevention abuzz, pondering what exactly might be coming down the pipeline. Things were quiet following CV9 until a fan posted a snapshot of some black and white concept sketches of the new Chuck E. Cheese on Facebook. At the time, nobody was sure how accurate these sketches might have been. For all anyone knew, they could have been preliminary ideas that had been thrown out. But for the fans who managed to see them, there was some excitement, because the changes to the character were huge and drastic. These posted sketches floated around on Facebook for maybe a day. Then, under pressure from CEC Entertainment, they were pulled by the various people who had reshared them. It was immediately apparent that CEC Entertainment wanted this kept under wraps, and following the deletions, they were not reposted by other fans. A color version of these sketches began circulating amongst fans shortly after, albeit privately this time. It turns out that these images were taken from an internal company newsletter that was sent out to all 500-plus Chuck E. Cheese stores. Apparently, the company didn't anticipate that something sent out to hundreds of outlets would find ways of leaking onto the internet, especially something this big. On June 19th, Chuck E. Cheese's official Facebook page was plastered with preview images of the new Chuck E. Cheese, blacked out in silhouette. However, those fans that managed to see the redesigned sketches immediately noticed that the final design was going to be very, very close to the concept art. Over the course of the following days, CEC kept teasing the new reveal on their social media. On June 22nd, they mentioned Chucky's Rockstar makeover. On June 27th, the official CEC Facebook page posted a link stating that if you signed up for their new email club, that you'd be one of the first to hear Chucky's first hit single. Since the fan community had been grasping at scraps of information, Travis, the founder of ShowbizPizza.com, figured it wouldn't hurt to get in on this email access to try and make more sense of where they were taking CEC. This is when things began to get tricky. Travis got the link for the MP3 download on the morning of June 28th, which, unbeknownst to him at the time, was almost a full day sooner than any of the other fans who had signed up. Before even really listening to the track, he threw the MP3 into his sound editing software to adjust the volume levels to match the rest of the Radio Showbiz audio library, when it occurred to him that he should check to see what the other fans thought of it. He went into a Facebook group for CEC and Showbiz fans that he had joined a few days prior and started asking around. As it turned out, nobody else had gotten any links to the MP3, so he shared his, and everyone began discussing their thoughts on the new song. The biggest question was whether it was Duncan Brennan doing the voice or not. Duncan was, of course, the voice of Chucky, and had been for close to 20 years. To Travis, it didn't sound like him, though he assumed it was, just that Duncan was doing it in a different way. The guy does character voice work after all, so why wouldn't he change it up? After a quick listen to the track, Travis's then partner said it sounded like the theme song to Phineas and Ferb. The fans in the Facebook group chimed in that it sounded like the band Bowling for Soup. So once Travis got around to posting the link to download the MP3 on the ShowbizPizza.com Facebook page, he made a joking reference to both of those guesses, not having any clue that the guy singing as Chucky was in fact the guy behind both. Some accidental accuracy right there. The rest of June 28th was spent digging around on the USPTO website and checking out the first official images of the redesigned CEC, because some of the fans are just that hardcore. As much as CEC Entertainment tried to keep this character redesign under wraps, once something gets submitted for a trademark consideration, the government makes it publicly available to anyone nerdy enough to search it out. By the late afternoon, Travis checked out to go to sleep for the day. For those unaware, he has always worked overnight graveyard shifts. And when he awoke to get ready for work, he noticed some drama had unfolded. During the course of everyone's collective pondering and thoughts regarding the new MP3, one of the fans in the conversation decided to just contact Duncan and get the story. The next thing everyone knew, Duncan had posted a long note to his Facebook page detailing his replacement as the voice of Chucky, and how he came to find out the news, which began with everyone innocently digging around for some answers. At the time, Travis was shocked, and had no reason to believe that Duncan's version of the story was anything but accurate because, as Duncan mentioned, he had contacted a friend at CEC Entertainment that informed him he had been replaced. Travis's initial feelings were nervousness and a bit of remorse at the drama the fandom had helped to create. But he then realized that they didn't do any of that. All of the things talked about in Duncan's note were things that happened between CEC Entertainment and Duncan, and if the vocal change was as poorly handled as he claimed it to be, then the responsibility for that drama was caused by them. Travis spent that night at work thinking on how best to archive Duncan's note, which had already been copied and pasted to a few different outlets on Facebook. The reason that he wanted to save it? Because in the small CEC fandom, history had just taken place. Over the past few years, Travis worked at trying to compile and refine ShowbizPizza.com to be as historically accurate as possible, and that meant giving reference and citation to solid evidence wherever possible. Just because a note had been posted on a social media network hours prior made it no less pertinent than a 30-year-old company newsletter, and Duncan's post was relevant to the updates he was planning to add to the Chuck E. Cheese character page in the coming weeks. Typically, when citing conversations that either himself or other fans have had with individuals involved with Chuck E. Cheese in the past, either in person, via email, or even on Facebook, Travis would always give the generic personal correspondence citation, because he wanted to protect the privacy of these sources who were gracious enough to share the information. What was the reason for not doing this in this instance and instantly archiving and PDFing Duncan's note? Mostly because it was titled Press Release. That seemed to be fairly self-explanatory as meaning a public statement to the press, which in this case he figured was showbizpizza.com, since nobody outside the fandom cared about this junk. Or so he thought. On the morning of Friday, June 29th, Duncan's farewell note was posted to showbizpizza.com and also to the website's Facebook page. While the fans were still mourning the changes, Travis was moving on and getting back into posting more ancient documents, which he had been doing before all of this went down. Plus, the upcoming TV ads had hit the internet, so there was lots of new stuff to be concerned with, such as learning that the new CGI CEC was now going to be the size of a real rat. The Screen Magazine article previewing the new commercial was quickly posted to showbizpizza.com's Facebook page, albeit sarcastically, with a little tongue-in-cheek sass over the company being so concerned about the new character design leaking onto social media. Monday morning, July 2nd arrived, and Travis's inbox had a few messages from a fellow fan passing along links to a couple Dallas area newspapers and blogs that had also picked up the story about the voice changeover, and they both referenced not only showbizpizza.com, but also Duncan's note. His first thought was, why is this news? But to see the website's name in print was pretty amazing, so he didn't question it too hard. Before long, Gawker had written about it too, and the next thing Travis knew, a reporter from the Associated Press was contacting him to get in touch with Duncan for a comment. By this point, things were getting a little weird and confusing to say the least. CEC Entertainment had made an official statement contradicting Duncan's story, saying that he was not fired and that there was an opportunity for him to work with them again. Travis wasn't sure if this was coded language for saying that he technically was laid off, if it was the PR department trying to play damage control for the way this was all handled, or if maybe their side of the story was accurate and Duncan had received bogus info from his contact at the corporate office. Regardless, many of the blogs that were appearing had latched onto the portion of Duncan's press release where he detailed his religious beliefs. Many of the articles were solely focused on that and riddled with a sarcastic edge. Although Travis didn't necessarily see eye to eye on Duncan's views, and he understood how Duncan's strong convictions were ripe fodder for bloggers trying to make jokes or spin things into political theater, he wasn't very impressed with the turn this was quickly taking. Travis spent time going back and forth with a source at the AP, trying to help them get in touch with Duncan and get his side of the story, especially since CC Entertainment had weighed in, and also because he felt it was time for a real news agency to write a story in a professional manner. As Travis had experience with the resurgence of the Rockafire explosion that had happened a few years earlier, once things like this go viral, you cannot stop or slow them down. You can only try and wrestle what small amount of control or influence you're able to maintain. By this point, Perez Hilton and the Huffington Post had both ran stories, and there was no putting this cat back in the bag. Travis did what he could to help try to set the story straight on all this, detailing to the AP journalist how this all went down, and also making sure she was aware of the statement CEC Entertainment had made since the news broke. Unfortunately, she was unable to get in touch with Duncan for a statement, and the story officially ran on July 3rd, periodically updated throughout the day to include new images provided by CEC Entertainment, and also updated with a few minor clarifications. Reuters also picked up on the story shortly afterward, and showbizpizza.com was mentioned in both stories. Travis was still scratching his head, trying to figure out just what the heck happened in less than a week. Seriously, how does a group of unwitting fans go from being curious about some changes to the character they've grown to love, and within 5 days end up making national headlines? Even though he knew exactly how it happened, it still didn't compute. There was a lot of unanswered questions. Like, how did the media get a hold of all this in the first place? Let's be real. It's not as though news agencies jump to the computer every morning and hit up showbizpizza.com to see the latest juicy Chuck E. Cheese news. Although the CEC fandom was both in shock and turmoil over the controversy, things were even more chaotic back at CEC's corporate support center in Irving, Texas. Word had gotten back to Travis, as it always did, that there were some pretty angry people back at corporate. Angry with how this all played out, angry with ShowbizPizza.com's involvement in it, and angry with the fandom, as if they somehow masterminded this whole debacle from start to finish. Travis had a phone call with Mike Scherpenberg, a Dallas area fan who had some connections to the people at nearby corporate offices, who let him know just how bad things were sounding within the walls of the support center. Mike told him Blado is pissed. This, of course, was in regard to Jeremy Blado, the voice of Jasper T. Giles, and also the head of the entertainment department. Whether any of this was rumor, or exaggeration, or fantasy, the gist of the conversation was all wrapped around CEC Entertainment cutting ties with the fan community entirely. Communication was to stop immediately, and fans would no longer be welcomed to visit and tour the corporate offices. It was clear that the fallout was already starting to happen. The planned social media reveal of the new Chuck E. Cheese character had been completely derailed. All of the careful plotting, work, and investment that went into a grand public reveal was essentially wasted. The company instead had to play damage control, and rather than hype up the redesign, they were forced into a defensive stance over the controversy surrounding Duncan's replacement. Beyond that, they were pushed to reveal the character's new look, slightly ahead of schedule, to the Associated Press. Duncan, meanwhile, had remained quiet since posting the brief thanks for the support message to his Facebook wall, which was quickly deleted along with his original press release to the fans. Further removing himself from the controversy, he began unfriending nearly all of the Chuck E. Cheese fans that followed him on Facebook. Just when you thought this train wreck couldn't possibly get any worse, it got much, much worse. Although the new Rockstar Chuck E. Cheese had been revealed publicly in the press a few days earlier, the social media reveal went on as planned for July 5th. Gone were the blacked-out silhouettes, replaced with the new CGI version of Chuck E. Cheese. Followers on social media finally got to see the new look. And it was drastic, apparently much more so than people were prepared for. For the first time, the public was able to weigh in on social media, and weigh in they did. They hated it. Yes, there was a few positive comments here and there, but the overwhelming response was negative and nasty. And this wasn't coming from the CEC fandom. Of course they hated it. The company essentially ruined their childhood as far as most fans were concerned. No, this was a seething hate coming from customers and parents. Some parents openly stated that their children were literally crying over the look of the new character. Many people demanded that they change him back immediately. Someone took it upon themselves to create an entire Facebook group in opposition of the new CEC. If the company was banking on the redesign to spark excitement and new life for their floundering brand, it was quickly becoming apparent that they were not going to get that ending. Some people openly wished for the company's demise after seeing the redesigned Chucky. Now, you may be wondering why we've been referring to this redesigned debacle as Funnergate. That's one major detail we haven't even gotten into yet. Remember that new hit single, the MP3 download that sparked this whole mess? That song, performed by the new voice of CEC, Jared Reddick, was titled Say Cheese. It was the theme song for this entire ad campaign, used in several TV commercial spots, and the main conduit for introducing the world to the new Rockstar Chuck E. Cheese. Sounds innocent enough, but this song was controversial for one reason and one reason alone: the constant use of the term funner throughout the chorus. A production demo version of the song was discovered and revealed the original lyrics were, "Everybody say cheese this summer."
Everybody say cheese this summer. Everybody say cheese this summer. Say cheese this summer. And Chuck E. Cheese's where a kid can be a kid.
And for some reason, that was changed in the final version to be, "Everybody say cheese, it's funner."
Everybody say cheese, it's funner. Everybody say cheese, it's funner. Say cheese, it's funner. And Chuck E. Cheese's where a kid can be a kid.
Maybe this was done as a branding maneuver? How and why it was changed is unclear. What is crystal clear, though, is that people hated the song just as much as they hated the look of the new character, especially the parents of young children. Now, full disclosure, funner is probably grammatically correct and does appear in the dictionary, but it just sounds really, really stupid. They may have been going for something catchy and quirky, and, well, funner, which would be great and playful. However, Chuck E. Cheese's main audience is made up entirely of young, impressionable children. To be using awkward or improper English around children who are just learning to talk is a really tone-deaf thing to do. And those on social media did not hold back pointing this out, over and over. Enough to where the social media handlers were forced to jump in and do their best to defend funner as an actual word, with little to no avail. Someone was upset enough to create a petition on change.org. But as for Chuck E. Cheese and the term funner, there was no going back. They even made employee uniform t-shirts with the slogan. If nothing else, you have to hand it to the company for remaining dedicated and committed to the campaign, even when this disastrous. But really, they likely had little choice. The bleak reality facing Chuck E. Cheese at the start of 2012 was that sales and profits were beginning to slide. In January, they hired the Dallas-based Richards Group to help spearhead a rebranding effort to revitalize the aging Chuck E. Cheese brand. Sales were starting to soften, and in the first quarter of 2012, profits had slid 5.2% from a year prior. The actual working title for what we've been referring to as Funnergate is Chucky Rocks, and comprised months of work done by a variety of entertainment partners, all coordinated by Scott McDaniel, Chief Operating Officer of CC Entertainment, and Rhonda Zanan, Principal of the Richards Group. The concept sketches for the new Chucky were drawn by character artist Chris Ayers. The voice talent, as previously mentioned, was Jared Reddick, lead singer of Bowling for Soup. Other Dallas area partners were tapped to create 4 television spots, including Sugar Film Productions, Real FX, and Breed. It was quite an investment for what was initially reported to be more of a one-off ad campaign. When the whole Funnergate drama spread through the media, CC Entertainment repeatedly said that Duncan Brennan was still on tap to do in-store work with them. However, whether that was true or not, or even how they meant it, may never be known. Because once the viral news of his departure was known, it more or less forced the company to double down on the Chucky Rocks campaign and not turn back. They even went so far as to re-record the upcoming September 2012 show tape that was slated to play in stores, and splice in Jarrett's Chucky in place of Duncan's. Speaking of Jared Reddick, that may be the one silver lining in this Funnergate debacle, and sadly it's something that was sort of lost in the controversy and focus on Duncan's departure. Jarrett posted a tweet on June 29th, following the release of the Screen article, enthusiastically announcing he was the new voice of Chuck E. Cheese. Shortly after, the Dallas Observer wrote a follow-up to their original article about Duncan, where they interviewed Jarrett, who gushed about taking the reins. He recalled his history growing up and going to Showbiz Pizza Place, and stating, "It's a freaking dream come true." He added, "I was actually doing a session yesterday, and the Chuck E. Cheese bigwigs are sitting there, watching, and I had to take a moment and say, I'm a 40-year-old man and I'm Chuck E. Cheese." Given his celebrity status, having been the frontman for the band Bowling for Soup, a band who had a popular top 40 album, he didn't view character voice work as some form of grunt work. He was actually honored to take on such an icon, and was very open with his appreciation for the character. And time has proven his dedication, and as the years have passed, he's encroaching closer and closer to Duncan's long tenure. As everyone is surely aware, the Rockstar changeover stuck. It's now been almost 13 years, and the CGI version of Chucky is still going strong, with all of Chucky's bandmates getting their own Rockstar treatment in the years that followed. Although some fans have still yet to fully embrace the current Chuck E. Cheese, most people have come around to accept the modern Rockstar, and an entire generation of kids have only known this version of the character. But the million-dollar question is, did the character rebrand help turn around the sliding sales, revenue, and profit at Chuck E. Cheese's? Not exactly. As evidenced in the earliest years of Chuck E. Cheese, back in the Pizza Time Theater era, when the company is doing well, the annual reports are fun, colorful, and optimistic. And when they suddenly turn to plain text and look like a legal briefing, things aren't ideal. As it happened when Pizza Time slid into bankruptcy following 1983, Chuck E. Cheese's 2012 annual report had much of the same appearance. This time, the company didn't go belly up, but the struggles continued throughout 2013, and culminated in the company agreeing to be sold to Apollo Global Management in January of 2014. It's hard to tell for sure how much the Rockstar changeover played into this. It may have had nothing to do with it whatsoever. Perhaps the company had just hit an insurmountable sales slump to where the company's sale to a private equity firm was inevitable. No matter what, though, the character update did little to help change anything. The Disastrous rollout in 2012 definitely didn't help, but over time this was all essentially forgotten about, as Rockstar Chuck E. is still going strong today. Will Chuck E. Cheese be given a new look again? Considering how long and established the Rockstar version of the character has become, it seems unlikely, but never say never. With any luck, though, if such a change is attempted in the future, it won't be nearly as chaotic as the Funnergate fiasco.